So normally we start with a quote from the book at the beginning, but instead of doing that, I think it's important to hear from the author himself. I think this will be really beautiful, really meaningful for y'all. So yeah, just connect with Eric here and then jam out to the intro music.
It was 30 years after we won our independence, the British challenged us again in the War of 1812, burning parts of that city named after George Washington. You may be familiar with that city. They burned parts of the city, including the White House, which at that time, if you can believe it, did not yet have a ballroom. Yes, it's hard to believe that it would take 2 centuries for the Lord to raise up a great man to bring that ballroom finally to stand where it needs to stand. It's extraordinary. We only had to wait 200 years.
Boo! What do we know? What does we? How are the union and the socialist be? Everything I can need, oh I need, oh I need, oh I need, oh what does we? Oh what does we? Oh what does we? Oh what do we? Oh what does we? Oh what does we?
Welcome back to Workers Lit, your favorite literature podcast for hot, cool, gay, and or working class people. Jacob here with Jen. Jen is, I think, the angriest she's ever been with me this week.
Never going to forgive you for this.
And Lenore and Aisha are currently busy, fighting for American patriotism, channeling the spirits of Martin Luther and Bonhoeffer and whatnot.
Channeling the Holy Spirit, yeah.
Yes, absolutely, as they did. So we've got returning guest, 7th time on the podcast.
Is that right?
Josh Boerman.
Good
Welcome
God.
back to the show, Josh.
Thanks once again for having me. I'm excited to dig into some more brainworms. These are not my brainworms exactly, but they're brainworms that I am adjacent to. I know, Jacob, these worms are in your brain, however.
Deeply embedded.
So,
I would almost say this is one of the most loathsome guys we ever covered. Maybe even the most loathsome, except literally AJ was on the podcast a couple weeks ago to do JD Vance.
right.
This might be worse.
It's kind of worse, right?
Yeah.
It's a worse book.
I think it's worse.
It's definitely a worse book.
This guy comes off as smart, which I think is worse because it
Not
gives
in this
him
book,
more...
he doesn't, though.
It depends on what you mean by smart. Yeah.
Smarter than JD Vance.
Yeah.
The bar is low. I know the bar is low.
I mean, as we established, Usha Vance is the brain in that relationship,
Yeah.
and JD was much
Yes.
happier before they had kids, serving as her footstool for 8 hours a day. We discussed that on the episode. Go listen to that. But before we get into it, Josh, folks know who you are, but on the off chance they don't, you host the Worst of All Possible Worlds. You host the Ill-Conceived podcast.
I do.
Anything else you want to tell folks about you before we'll dive into this text? What's your history with Eric Metaxes as well, I should ask?
Sure. So what I do on both of my shows is spend quite a bit of time talking about reactionary narratives, either in popular culture or in a broader societal sense, particularly with Ill-Conceived. And, reactionary politics has been on an ascendancy again lately. That's an obvious thing. That's such an obvious statement that it's cliche to even make it. But I think in order to understand the moment that we're in, we also have to understand what the sort of rhetorical underpinnings of it are. Mm-hmm. And sometimes this is rhetoric that is just sort of jammed in our face, and more so now, obviously, under the Trump administration. But these are not new narratives. These are narratives that have been under construction for a while. And they are narratives that I think were refined during and immediately following the acute period of the pandemic. Mm-hmm. And this book, Letter to the American Church by Eric Metaxes, I think is an excellent example of what structuring that narrative looked like. Because this is clearly something that has taken hold for a lot of people. This was a very successful book within its target demographic. Eric Metaxes himself is a very successful man in the world of right-wing talk radio. And that's kind of why I was interested in doing this. It was something, he's a guy I've been wanting to talk about for a while because he works within the world of Christian media more broadly. back in the day wrote for Veggie Tales.
Oh, yeah.
But he also, the thing that he does and the thing that he represents has so much more purchase now than it did when this book was written. But at the same time, now they've overextended in a lot of ways, this organizational movement. And so the time is clearly coming for sort of a counterattack. And in order to properly perform that counterattack, we have to figure out what their weak spots are. So
that's how this was pitched to me. why it was important to read this fucking garbage.
Jen, do you have any history with Eric Metaxes? Were you familiar with who this guy was?
Literally not until 6 weeks ago when you told me I needed to read this book.
That's fair.
Yeah.
You got a used copy, right? It already had some marks.
I did get a used copy that is highlighted by somebody who very much agreed with this.
Hell
shit.
yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't gonna actually spend more than, I think I got this book for like $5, which was the most I was gonna spend. And I will be burning it when we are done with this because I don't even want to sell it back to half price books. Nobody should have to read this.
For sure. Yeah, mulch it Amazon style.
Yes.
I got it for $0.
Nice.
I just like to say that.
Good for you.
Same.
As to how, I'm not going to say.
No, yeah.
But
no.
I did.
Alice. I meditated really hard and I got it.
It popped into your head.
Jacob was
did.
sent a copy from Eric Metaxes himself.
Nice, nice.
If we had kept up, we'll get into that in a second.
We'll get into it.
Yes, I knew this man personally.
Carnally, biblically.
Not carnally,
yeah.
though I wanted to when I was a teenager. That's embarrassing.
He's
but
a
it's
good-looking
true.
guy.
He's a good-looking
and
guy.
that also pisses
And he
me
used
off.
to
He's
be even
very
more
good-looking.
good-looking.
Yes.
Well, might as well get into Eric Metaxes, and we'll talk about my relationship to him when it gets to the relevant point in his life. Feel free to chime in as we go through here, folks. Eric Metaxes was born on June 27th, 1963 in Astoria, Queens, in New York City, where he still resides in that area. I think he actually is in Manhattan now. But he ended up being raised in Danbury, Connecticut. I have to note, Danbury is nicknamed Hat City because it was along the center of the American hat manufacturing industry. Eric almost never wears a hat, so that is strike one. I feel like if you lived in Danbury, you grew up there, you need to wear hats more often.
Honestly,
Just a
he
thought.
would look really good with one of those stupid hats.
I think so.
There aren't very many people who can pull off those stupid hats, but he totally could,
I agree.
unfortunately.
He was raised in the Greek Orthodox Church. His mother was a German immigrant who grew up in Nazi Germany. She then lived in East Germany before moving to the U.S. I should note, 1950s, East Berlin, not the best time to live in a place. It's interesting. I think it's really cool that Eric was like, okay, that Stasi stuff, that was good, but let's cut all the social welfare programs. That's kind of where he landed. His father was Greek, hence the Greek Orthodox. Metaxes has since referred to himself multiple times as mixed race as a result of this. Because he hasn't done it in a while, to be fair, but like 2010's interviews I was digging up in like 2006, he was like, yeah, I'm mixed race. I'm Greek, German. I think that's really cool.
Yeah.
Wow.
We don't speak of the Greek race fondly in this household.
That's true. That's true. He still considers himself to be a bit of a Greek nationalist. If you ask him about Greek stuff, he'll start reciting Greek poetry from not like ancient Greek poetry, like recent stuff. It's very weird for someone who's such an American nationalist. He claims his hatred of communism comes from his mother's experience and what his father witnessed in the Greek Civil War. He said it was drilled into him with a religious fervor as fundamentally tied to his Christianity, which, yeah, you can see that. Metaxes goes to Yale University and gets a BA in English in 1984.
Oh, that explains so much.
Oh, yeah.
Has Yale produced anyone that isn't an unrepentant fascist?
I don't, we covered, God, what's his name that went to their theater program?
I was going to say, Yale School of Drama has had some good grads.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the guy who wrote Gaywick was there for a little bit because he said it was the best place to hook up with men in the 60s.
Interesting. Okay.
Paul Giamatti.
There you go.
Okay.
Jodie Foster.
Okay, some cool people.
Jabari Brisport. Jabari Brisport was... Wait, hold on. Jabari Brisport graduated from Yale's acting program in 2014. How did I not know that?
Really? Didn't know that either.
Yeah.
What's interesting is, like J.D. Vance in his book, he constantly bemoans how left-wing Yale is, how everyone at Yale except for him was a secular communist, etc. Crazy how many guys went to Yale and everyone around them was a secular communist and they weren't. Not sure how the math works there, but whatever. He also was the editor of the Yale Record, the nation's oldest college humor magazine. I looked into it. Whew, some pretty dire humor there. I'm gonna link some of it because I don't have time to go into it. We'll like go on a rabbit hole. I'm gonna link some of it in the show notes if folks want to go on a deep dive. According to his interview with Deep Thrills magazine, he had doubts about God at Yale because, everyone around him doubted God, according to him. But God revealed himself to him in a dream, and he never doubted again. He was asked, what was the dream? And he said, that's private. He is never...
You could say that it was his own personal God and man at Yale.
True.
Folks.
Holy shit.
Folks.
Good point. He gets a job in the 90s, writing for Breakpoint Radio and working with Prison Fellowship with one Mr. Chuck Colson,
whom he idolizes. He thinks
him.
that noted ex-con Nixon collaborator Chuck Colson is like a saint.
Yes. Chuck Colson, for those who don't know, one of the guys that went down with Watergate, spent time in prison, did a whole, I became an evangelical in prison thing and became even more successful. Well, not more successful, but quite successful after coming out of prison.
One of the guys in Watergate, right? Wasn't he literally one of the guys who broke in?
Yeah, I believe so. Right there in the mix. And when Chuck dies, by the way, Eric inherits his nationally syndicated radio show.
Oh,
yeah. He sucked up so hard that he inherited Chuck Colson's fucking show.
He's basically Erica Kirk.
He had to do similar stuff too to get there.
Yeah.
Metaxes becomes an author originally of children's fiction. His best-selling children's fiction is Squanto and the Miracle of Thanksgiving, published in the 90s.
Oh, God.
Has the racial politics you might expect of that. He's got over 30 children's books. Similar to Kash Patel, he's actually recently done some Donald Trump children's books. Donald the Caveman, about Donald as a hero building walls, keeping monsters out of the caveman kingdom.
Fuck yeah. So this is like the opposite of the shit that John Lithgow is doing?
Very much so. Yes.
Cool.
Or like that book from the what are the brothers, the like Krasenstein brothers, that like how the people dumped Trump or whatever.
Right.
It's the opposite.
Oh my God.
He's got villains based on AOC, who's like a whiny child, and like Bernie Sanders, who's an old wizard.
Amazing.
He works for Veggie Tales for a short but very critical time, writing and narrating their 12th episode, Esther, the Girl Who Became Queen. Unfortunately, a banger episode, I have to say.
And that was when Big Idea was really in its ascendancy, like in getting close to the peak of its powers before they released the Jonah movie.
Right.
And then the sort of financial situation at the studio began to fall apart with the more and more resources they were pouring into it. And Phil Vischer talks a fair bit about his relationship with Eric Metaxes. He's Phil Vischer being the guy who founded Big Idea and is the voice of Bob the Tomato. He posted very sadly on Twitter when Metaxes blocked him in 2021 and was so like, sad. He used to be so nice and funny, and now he's lost his way.
Sad face.
Josh, I wish there was a podcast where people could go to learn about Veggie Tales and the origins
if
there.
Only. If only there was one. Guess we'll never know.
There might be an episode of Worst of All Possible Worlds. He also wrote for 321 Penguins, voiced characters on that show. And yes, like Josh said, he's fallen out with Phil Vischer. I like this. In 2020, they were sparring back and forth on Twitter, and Eric said, "What would William Wilberforce care about today? I think abortion." And Phil responded, "I'd go out on a limb and say the African diaspora was up there."
Yeah, slavery, maybe. Slavery might be the big one, yeah.
Like, he might still care about the stuff he cared about in life, and then Eric got so mad.
Both the black diaspora in the United States and modern slavery. I think those would be the things that he'd be concerned about, yeah.
In the year 2000, he founds Socrates in the City, a series of conversations on life, God, and other small topics.
Shut up.
Shut
the fuck up.
Socrates.
It hosts regular forums with leading thinkers, and it's like all Christians and then like Malcolm Gladwell. And let me let y'all guess who the central philosopher that they build this whole thing around is. It's not Socrates.
Okay, well, philosopher, is this like
It's
an
in
actual
quotes.
philosopher?
I'm putting philosopher in quotes here.
Oh,
Paul the disciple.
William Buckley?
C.S. Lewis.
Okay.
He gets a shout out in this fucking book too.
Oh, of
When
course
I
he
came
does.
to that, I like threw the book down. I cannot.
Always. I have to note, they sell sweatshirts that just say Socrates on them, and that's it. I think
I'd wear that. Unfortunately, that's so stupid that I'd wear it.
the good news is, Josh, this is still going. You can go to one of their many yearly forums, and it's near you in New York City.
Well.
Yeah.
Wow.
So big stuff there. In 2007, Metaxas writes a companion book to the William Wilberforce movie Amazing Grace, titled Amazing Grace, William Wilberforce and the Heroic Campaign to End Slavery. The book does quite well, but it is criticized for a lack of academic rigor and over-focusing on religious elements in the life of William Wilberforce. But it's nothing next to what's coming. I've read the book. It's definitely like religiously motivated. It's definitely doing the political stuff. It is nothing compared to his Bonhoeffer or book or his or anything that comes after, really. This is really where he's like kind of gathering his powers as a public intellectual, as he will begin to refer to himself as after this book comes out, which is really cool to call yourself a public intellectual. In 2011,
How else are people going to know if you don't say it? You know?
That's true. I'm a private intellectual. In 2011, he releases Bonhoeffer, Pastor, Martyr, Prophet, Spy, a biography of Dietrich Bonhoeffer, an anti-Nazi pastor who conspired against Hitler, worked to save people from death camps, and eventually died in opposition to the Nazis. This book sold like fucking crazy. This was the #1 ebook in the world for a long time. This was #1 on the New York Times bestseller list for a while. The New York Times wrote a pretty glowing review of it, despite his hatred for the New York Times. Much to the chagrin, by the way, of actual Bonhoeffer scholars.
I was going to say,
the thing.
It needs to be noted that Metaxas is not a historian.
Not at all.
At all.
That's obvious.
I will link a critique from an actual scholar of Bonhoeffer, Clifford Green, from the Christian Century magazine in the show notes, because it's worth reading. In short, he did literally zero new research for the book. It's based full of factual errors. The whole thing is basically written to be a screed about why the Nazis are the same as people who believe in evolution, abortion, and progressive issues. And the book ignores things like, I don't know, Bonhoeffer's long correspondence and alliance with socialists, communists, anarchists, political leftists, and non-Christians, or his breaks with Christian dogma. Bonhoeffer certainly was a Christian, but he was not the kind of guy Metaxas says he was. We'll
Yeah, I mean, this is a preview of coming attractions for what we are going to find in Letter to the American Church.
Oh, yeah. Now, it does not keep the book from being huge. It wins the Evangelical Christian Publishers Association Book of the Year, all kinds of stuff. He gets given an honorary doctorate from Liberty University, so we're going to have to call him Dr. Metaxas now. He gets
you have to if it's honorary. I
No.
feel like you didn't earn that. You don't have to be called doctor.
I don't have to do shit.
That's true.
I don't have to do shit if he did earn it.
Yeah.
Liberty University has an over 99% acceptance rate. I don't have to call him doctor if he did study there.
Wow.
This book's prominence gets him chosen to keynote the 2012 National Prayer Breakfast, which is a
Right.
big moment if you're in these spaces. He's very shady towards Obama, very all this stuff. Obama, nevertheless, praises the book, and pictures of him holding it are on Metaxas' website because despite calling him a traitor and literally Hitler, he is a clout fiend first and foremost.
They all are.
This shit gets him lots of speaking slots, lots of Fox News Time, CPAC, all of that. Just to speed run really quick, a bunch of books he wrote after this: 2013, Seven Men's and Secret to Their Greatness. I have to note the men: George Washington, William Wilberforce, Eric Liddell, Dietrich Bonhoeffer, Jackie Robinson, Pope John Paul II, and Chuck Colson.
What's Jackie Robinson doing in there?
You have to put a black guy.
I guess.
Literally, I read the book. I mean, I read the book a decade ago, but it literally is, don't worry, I'm not racist, to put Jackie Robinson in
Right.
here.
Right.
I mean, that's the thing. Not to belittle Jackie Robinson at all. The guy was
No,
one of the
not at
fucking best baseball
he's
players the
amazing.
game has ever known. But, like,
No connection to these other guys, though.
no.
Like, he does another book called Seven More Men. He does a book called Seven Women. He does another book in 2017 about Martin Luther. Same shit, same criticisms. This one's even worse scholarly. He writes the book If You Can Keep It, a book that he describes as a call to arms to destroy the left. This book was 2016. He writes a memoir of his life, A Fish Out of Water, in 2021, which I did
brother.
go through for this. As well as Is Atheism and Dead in 2021, which he said is a response to the Time magazine article, Is God Dead, from the 1960s. He said he had wanted to respond to that Time magazine for a long time.
Glad he got around to that.
So, yeah, we were all on the edge of our seat.
We've been waiting.
He's got his finger on the pulse.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I can tell you about.
Yeah.
But what I think is really important is in 2012, he makes a stop at a place called Grace Chapel in Franklin, Tennessee, where a young Jacob Dallas is sitting.
This is the pivotal moment in Eric's life.
It is. It's very important for him. And I was like, this is the coolest guy I've ever seen in my,
Did you height mog him even at 14?
Yes. Oh God. Yeah. Oh yeah. I would have, I was in my early teens at the time. And then Pastor Steve Berger, who we have also discussed on the show, current roommate of Mike Johnson, introduced me to Eric Metaxes. Oh yeah, current roommate.
That sounds gay. What kind of adult man has a roommate?
He lives upstairs, and Mike Johnson lives downstairs in a finished basement. Jen, there's
Mike
no
Johnson,
way I haven't.
The Speaker of the House,
Yes.
has a male roommate.
That's correct. Yes.
This is a whole thing.
I
yes.
didn't know this.
Jen, how have I not told you about this?
I did not know this.
I have to tell you off mic. This is a whole.
It's deeply weird. The whole thing is even weirder than you think. Yeah, yeah. There's nothing normal about Mike Johnson.
Yes. Yes. No. Yeah. He's good. He's a good guy.
Not.
Steve Berger. Steve Berger introduced me to him. Me and Metaxes have a bit of a correspondence that I cannot find, which I'm very upset about.
Oh, like you were emailing?
Just a little
bit.
bit.
Replies to your email this week.
If I do find it, I will do an addendum to this episode and cut in. I've also sent him an email this week asking him some questions, acting as a fan to see if I could get anything. No response yet, but again, we'll cut it in if I get anything. But I was really into him. I thought he was hot. I mean, he is hot, especially back then. But I was super oh, this is the guy. I want to be a writer. I want to be like this guy. He's writing about Bonhoeffer. That's sick. That's cool. He's talking about how we gotta revolt. That's fucking awesome.
And he's multiracial to boot.
That's
so
right.
come on.
So he's woke.
That's
yes.
true.
Yeah, I gave him an overly long handshake. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
It's all right. We were all 14 once. I get it. I really do.
In 2015, he basically wraps the Coulson Show into the Eric Metaxes Show, where he broadcasts from a rented room in the Empire State Building. He still does this. I don't know why the fuck he rents a room to broadcast his show, except clout. I don't know. He's had a lot of folks you might expect: Ross Douthat, Rand Paul, that sort of person. Also funnier characters: Milo Yiannopoulos, Naomi Wolf. But also some strange guests like Morgan Freeman and Andrew Garfield have been on his fucking show.
Okay.
Andrew Garfield?
Yeah. Not really to talk about right-wing politics, just talk about the industry or whatever. But still,
That's
very
so
weird.
Odd.
That's just proof that you should just ask people to come on your podcast.
Genuinely.
They might say
It kind of
yes.
works. It kind of works.
Yeah.
In 2015 primary, he of course calls Trump disgusting, anti-Christian, embarrassing, boorish.
Oh, did he really do the Never Trump thing for a little bit there?
No, as soon as Trump won the primary, he switched and said he was wrong.
Okay.
He's
just a craven bitch.
He was just a Cruz guy. He was a Cruz guy until Cruz was whatever.
Right.
And then he says at one point Trump's SNL performance won him over a little bit. just
what?
Deeply embarrassing. He was charming.
No, he wasn't.
And
No,
that's
it was
when
a
people
really
realized
bad.
he was illiterate was when he did that.
Trump has had public performances that have been funny and engaging. His
wasn't that
SNL
one.
appearance was not one of them.
It's not that one.
Well, since he's become a huge Trump head, he's called him, I'm pulling some quotes from his social media. He's wily like a fox. He's genius. He's a strong and handsome man. He
saying
says,
Just a lie.
you're not a real Christian if you don't support Trump, he said. Literally, there are no Christians that don't. He called Trump a prophet. He said he is Elijah, perhaps returned.
Okay, at what point does this just become blasphemy? You know?
Sounds like blasphemy to me.
Here's my favorite one, y'all. When Trump on Easter tweeted, "We are going to obliterate Iran, praise be to Allah," because when he did that, he said,
just this past year, right?
He
Was
just
it-
a few months
ago, he said, This was on Twitter. He said, "You don't understand. This is a reference. This is a reference to Elijah mocking the prophets of Baal. That's what
No, it's
Trump is
not.
doing."
That's not what he was doing.
4D chess, baby. 4D chess.
Do you think that Trump knows who the prophet Elijah is? Get fucking real, dude.
He literally said it was a Mount Carmel reference, and I'm like, you are insane.
There is no way that Eric Metaxes actually believes that.
Surely
right?
not.
Like,
No, yeah.
that I don't think and we're going to talk about this at some length. I think the question of like, how canny is he to what he is saying? But I simply refuse to believe that he actually thinks that Trump knows enough about anything in the Bible to do a deliberate reference.
Because he's met Trump a bunch of times. Like, he's talked to the man one-on-one as well. In 2019, he starts advocating Trump to declare a state of emergency, ousting even McConnell and the whole swamp. In 2020, he punches an anti-Trump protester.
Eric Metaxes does?
Yes, he does. Get this. He admits the man didn't touch him, but he said his words felt threatening.
Wait, did he get charged with assault? Or
No,
what happened?
He was fine. There was like
What?
a bit of a kerfuffle, but then they dropped it.
Wow.
But
So,
yeah, it's
I'm
on
sorry.
video. He punches the
Can I
dude in
punch
the head.
somebody to
Like
see
a
if their
real
words were
punch?
threatening?
Oh yeah, no, he punches him pretty hard.
I'm gonna put that in my pocket.
It was
I'm
2020.
sorry,
It
but
was
his
right
words
after
were
Trump.
threatening me.
It was
His
right after
words-
Trump announced officially his acceptance of the RNC's re-endorsement in 2020, which was of course a formality. But yeah, he was there at the White House. As he's walking away, a protester yells at him, and yeah, he punches him in the head and doesn't get in trouble.
Amazing.
He tells people not to get the vaccine because it's made with the cells of aborted babies.
I mean, that's just true.
Yeah, that's just facts. There's a lot of
Got my
aborted babies.
Abortion in a bottle here, baby.
Well, and he says that it has killed thousands and thousands. He said the other day on Twitter.
Has?
Yes, he said the other day it is an objective fact that the vaccine has killed tens of thousands of children. He said the other day.
Cool.
Of children?
Oh yeah, children specifically.
like the children who are ground up to get put into the vaccine, or
No,
when the
no.
children take the vaccine.
No,
Okay.
the children taking the vaccine. Yes.
Got it. Okay.
Interesting.
He repeatedly calls the 2020 election stolen, says Jesus is on the side of Trump being reelected. He's willing to die to keep Biden from taking office. On Charlie Kirk's
Well, why
show,
didn't he?
he said he
Why
was
didn't
going. He says, I'm not kidding. In 2020, he says, I will fight to the last drop of blood to keep Joe Biden from taking the oath of office.
Seems like he didn't.
Decides to write a book instead.
Was he at January 6th?
I don't think so. I couldn't find any evidence of him being there. So he's not even true to this. You know what I mean?
Yeah, put your money where your mouth is,
Because I
brother.
looked. I couldn't find him at January 6th. Josh, I'm going to send you a tweet from Eric Metaxes. Would you read this really quick? I'm going to send it
Absolutely.
to Discord DMs. It's pretty good. This is from November 20th, 2020, right here.
Trump will be inaugurated, having won in a landslide. Many will go to jail for having attempted to murder Uncle Sam and Lady Liberty. Many corrupt institutions will go down in flames. Hang tough, patriots. Pray that justice will be served. The best is yet to come. And then there's a link to an article from the Epic Times.
Oh, okay.
Really sick.
We love the Epoch Times around here.
And yeah, finally, in 2022, Eric released his letter to the American church, which we were discussing today. His ad reads, "Silence in the face of evil is itself evil. Not to speak is to speak. Not to act is to act. God will not hold you guiltless." And honestly, there's nothing real to report since then. At one point in 2024, he did do a really embarrassing push on Twitter to try to get picked as Trump's VP.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
It was literally the window right after the assassination. So the few days before JD Vance gets named, he says, Trump, you have to pick a VP who the deep state won't kill you because they're even more afraid of the VP. There's only one man for the job. It's me. He's deleted most of that, but I was able to find some of it. It's really embarrassing.
That is some self-important nonsense right there.
After having read this book, I cannot believe he would be as self-important as to try to mount a Twitter campaign to become vice president of the United States.
Amazing.
In 2025, he tried to start a talk show that no one picked up, but he recorded 5 episodes of the show. He couldn't get it syndicated anywhere.
He's just like me for real.
Yeah. He tried to tie Zoran to 9/11 recently. That was pretty cool.
He was like 3 years old at the time. I love it.
Yes.
I love that.
He is presently a distinguished fellow at Cornerstone University, where he gets
He is?
paycheck. Yes. He is. Yes.
You know that I grew up like down the street from Cornerstone University, right?
I did not know that. No.
Yeah. And when I went to Calvin is Calvin College, which is also in Grand Rapids, Michigan, is just a hop, skip, and a jump away up the Beltline. This is rocking my world right now. You're talking about Cornerstone University in Grand Rapids, Michigan, right?
That's what it says. I think he doesn't live there, but he is considered a distinguished fellow. I think he does he doesn't teach.
It says he lives in New York City.
He does. He lives in Manhattan with his wife and daughter.
It doesn't surprise me, actually, that he would be a distinguished fellow at Cornerstone. Cornerstone is not an academically rigorous institution.
Sure.
Shocking.
Finally, does anyone want to guess what denomination he currently adheres to?
Right now?
I mean, he's an evangelical.
Spin the wheel.
Yeah.
Let's go with Anglican.
Okay, so there's a trick question. He says, get this, when he was asked his denomination, he says, I have respect for everybody, but like C.S. Lewis would say, I'm a mere Christian.
What does that mean?
He does go to, I think he goes to a Greek Orthodox church though. So still Greek Orthodox.
But he does not claim a denomination.
No, he doesn't. And he claims his books are completely non-denominational and there's nothing any type of Christian can object to in his books. He said Catholic, Orthodox, Protestant, all of it is in line. His Martin Luther book, definitely not the case.
Interesting.
And that's Eric Metaxes. Just a fucking loathsome piece of shit. I can't, I really.
Yeah.
So, with that said, let's get into this book. Does someone want to read? I've got in the notes right under introductions what it says at the very top, and I think this is as good a way to frame this book up as any. Jen or Josh?
I did want to give my little thesis about it. Everything I know about Eric Metaxes is everything that Jacob just said. I'd never heard of this man before it was proposed that we read this book. I found a used copy of it. I read the jacket first thing, and it made me immediately livid. I've been mad at Jacob for a month now, reading this book. But I will say the thesis, and this is the problem I have with this type of writing, this flavor of, if you want to call it fascism, I would. But whatever this type of right-wing faux intellectual bullshit, it starts off with the thesis is good here, okay? So this book is about, he goes into this long drawn out, and to be fair, it's not a correct history of Germany in the 1930s, but there is some truth to it. And the idea here is that the German church in the 1930s did not do enough to stand up to the Nazi Party, which I think most people can agree with. And now he didn't really mention how a lot of times they were not just complacent, but complicit in the rise of fascism in Germany. He kind of glosses over that. But his main point here is that the good Christians of Germany, specifically the German church, didn't do enough, didn't stand up, were either too afraid, they thought they could just keep quiet, they didn't want to be too political, they thought maybe this would just blow past, and they were not bold enough to stand up to the Nazis in the face of the terror that was happening all around them. And I think most people, Christian or not, can be like, yeah, that's probably true. Most normal Germans, or a lot of normal, quote-unquote, normal Germans, didn't do enough until it was too late. Now, does he talk about the fact that the communists were street fighting the Nazis? First they came for the communists, and then the socialists, and then the trade unionists. He leaves all of that out. But his point that the church should have stood up for their Jewish neighbors, certainly not their queer neighbors that were being persecuted, certainly not their disabled neighbors that were being persecuted, but the church didn't do enough to stand up for the Jews in Germany. And I think that is a very fair starting place. So he takes that, and then I'm going to read this short couple of sentences from page 99. But what about us? Haven't we in the American church swallowed these same lies? And haven't we been similarly silenced from speaking and acting boldly against what we see happening in our own time? If what we say and do is characterized as political, how else can we have allowed things to get to the point where they are now in American society? You know what, Eric? I agree with that. The church probably should take a stand against all the fucked up stuff that is happening in American society. But instead of taking that statement and saying, and that's why we should stand with our LGBTQ brothers and sisters. That is why we should take a stand against American imperialist aggression overseas. This is why it is so important for the church to stand with our immigrant neighbors who are being hunted in the streets. No, he does not say this. He conflates German churches in the 1930s hanging swastikas outside of their church as the same thing as a church that hangs a rainbow flag or says Black Lives Matter. It took me a long time to read this because I could not read more than 2 chapters at a time without my brain exploding from anger. But like every time I sat down to read this, I would take pictures of it, and in my notes, I'm like, and then this is what you're doing. It's so illogical and nonsensical, and this is what I think frustrates me so much about the American right wing, is that they do start with this kernel of truth, right? This idea that there is something we could be doing, that things aren't great right now for a lot of people. And instead of being like, we can use our power, the power of the pulpit, the power of fuck all the money that the churches have here, and use this to set up, I don't know, healthcare clinics or sanctuary for immigrants or anti-war propaganda or whatever, millions of good things they could be doing. He says that it is so important right now for the church to take a stand against women's bodily autonomy, against the existence of gay people and gay marriage. This is the worst fucking thing I have ever read in my whole life. Endlessly frustrating. Fuck you, Eric Metaxes. You're a fascist. I hate you.
Well, I guess that's the episode. Yeah, that you sum it up. I mean, that's it.
That's the book. That's the whole book right there.
And it's just that over and over and over and over again from different angles. Yeah.
Yes.
And not even that different of angles, actually.
No, it's the same thing. It always comes back around to, and that's why gay people are the Antichrist.
Well, I actually think you nailed the introduction there. Let's get into the grievances then. Josh, will you read the quote I have right under grievances?
Sure. The ideas and forces we face have an atheistic Marxist ideology in common, although it never declares itself as such. It knows that doing this would wake many people up who are still asleep, and that would ruin everything. Okay. But what we must dare to see is that these many ideas share a bitter taproot that leads all the way down to hell. Woo! Critical race theory, which is atheistic and Marxist, and radical transgender and pro-abortion ideologies are all inescapably anti-God and anti-human. So they are dedicatedly at war with the ideas of family and marriage, and with the idea of America as a force for good, as a force for spreading the gospel and gospel values throughout the world. These ideas have, over many decades, infiltrated our own culture in such a way that they touch everything. And part of what makes them so wicked is that they smilingly pretend to share the biblical values that champion the underdog against the oppressor.
That's beautiful.
Does he not realize that he is part of the oppressor class?
No.
Like, there's no way he doesn't, at least intellectually, know what he's doing here.
No, he doesn't. He thinks he's the good guy. This is the thing that I find so interesting about this way of thinking, because this is something that I grew up with and grew up around a lot of. He has radicalized himself to a position that I think is far beyond where he was even 10 or 20 years ago. But it does fundamentally come from the place of believing that he is the moral center and the moral authority, and that the people around him are. And so I think to ask, like, does he not realize he's oppressing people? He rejects that framing out of hand because he believes himself to be the one who is oppressed,
Right.
Yes.
Right.
He sincerely believes that the church, he will at a certain point cite Bonhoeffer, one of his anti-Nazi speeches, getting pulled from the air on the radio.
Mhm.
By the way,
Mhm.
I looked into the historicity of it. That actually didn't happen. But regardless, let's say it did, because there were speeches pulled from the air in Nazi Germany to cancel culture. Like he says that
a
is
60-year-old man say getting canceled is so
so
embarrassing.
cringe.
So embarrassing. Yeah.
I think it's pretty cool. I think
Bro,
he's
you're
got the
60 years
kids.
old with a fake doctorate. Please don't talk like that.
Liberty University. I mean,
I said fake doctorate. I think that
it's really. Look, I've been to the campus, and do they have academic rigor? Not particularly. But do they have a fake ski slope where they import fake snow so you can ski? Yes. And really, at the end of the day, that's what matters.
We love bourgeois nonsense.
It's quite good. So
skiing is my favorite form of bourgeois nonsense.
Yes, it's pretty fun. Just to, do it normally. Why do you need it on your college campus? His grievance, one, is Marxism, communism. He says it's at the root of everything. I would like to highlight some of his terms. He says it's globalist. He says cultural Marxism. He says critical theory. Not in this book, but in his other writings. He says that the Frankfurt School is trying to replace white people. He gets right up to saying Judeo-Bolshevik bunch of times.
Because his whole thing is the church should have protected the Jews, and then he's like, fuck Judeo-Bolshevism.
His
like,
website cites him as an expert on fighting anti-Semitism. His website.
Oh.
He's
an expert.
Self-identifies. He's not certified by anybody.
Is Zionism a big part of his thing?
Yeah. He fucks heavy with Israel, yeah.
Okay.
Of course.
He said, I was looking into it, and it doesn't tie so much into this book, but I'm looking at his social media. It's very like, he says all the universities that had campus protests, that's because they're factories for creating Marxists.
Right.
And it's so shocking because he keeps saying like the globalists who control the UN, international banking, is against Israel. And I'm like, brother, do you understand these stereotypes you're pulling from Josh, I am curious. What do you were talking about how this type of guy sees himself as oppressed, obviously. However, do you think he even begins to understand the connection between like the root of his language and, anti-Semitism? Like, does he get that at all?
I doubt it.
Mm-hmm.
I think that generally speaking, this type of guy, when you are talking about just the concept of anti-Semitism writ large, the ne plus ultra for that obviously is the Holocaust. And these people are not Holocaust deniers. They very much are, they accept the historical truth and fact of the Holocaust as well as its perpetrators for the most part.
Yes.
But because in no small part of Zionism, the way that they relate to the concept of Judaism is very strange. They channel all of it through the state of Israel, by and large, because they see the modern state of Israel as being the fulfillment of ancient prophecy.
Right.
And so those two things are inextricably bound together. And in my experience, at least, for your average evangelical Christian right-winger, support of the state of Israel is the only litmus test regarding whether you are anti-Semitic in any way, shape, or form. And so that's also how you end up with the absolutely bizarre and wild situation of like, Israel is being discriminated against by the Jews, not like the bad kind. There's this strange way that.
Hell, check out how he draws Bernie Sanders in his book. It's crazy. Oh, yeah.
Oh, no. No.
And so that's the fascinating thing. And I will say with him. Oh, the one time I found criticism of him of Israel was he was like, wait, why is Israel discriminating against, his words, Christian Jews? That was a thing that he didn't understand.
Christian Jews?
He means
Does he just mean the
messianic,
church of Gaza that they
he's talking
blew
about
up?
he's talking about messianic Jews, people that are ethnically Jewish who convert to Christianity.
But he's not talking about Coptic Christians.
Oh, no. Not no. He's talking about Jewish people broadly, not exclusively, but broadly like, people, European origin Jews who convert
Right.
to Christianity. He's had several of them on his shows. It
Oh.
was an interesting, because I listened to a decent amount of his show. He had one guy who he called rabbi over and over, who was a Christian on the show. It's a very weird fucking thing.
Huh.
It's a very strange thing where he sees, like, because he subscribes to the, like, sort of Tim LaHaye, like, Israel is gonna be at this linchpin of the end times, and then a third of Jews there's gonna be the 140,000, and then another third of Jews are gonna convert to Christianity. That's kind of his, like, thing. So the one criticism he had of Israel, he was like, wait, why are they being mean to Christian Jews? They're Jews too. And I'm like, brother. Anyway, COVID is also a big thing for him.
Yes.
He calls temporary church closes, quote, what should have been the shot heard round the world, end quote.
Right.
We already talked about his vaccine criticism. On Twitter, he also claims, I had 2 friends die of COVID due to, quote, cancer from the vaccine. Say it again.
Turbo
cancer.
No,
You know
what? I don't think it was the vaccine. I'm going to go out on a limb here, not knowing. Obviously, I can't say this for certain, but I'm going to guess that COVID probably compromised their immunosystems and accelerated the growth of the cancer, if I had to guess.
What the fuck is turbo cancer?
He made it up. He also compares the vaccine to unhealthy behavior, such as smoking 3 packs a day or having extramarital sex.
3 packs is an insane metric to put there.
Also, only one of those is necessarily unhealthy. But
he says extramarital sex 3 packs a day in the COVID vaccine. Yeah, give me a day with all 3 of them. I'm gonna get some Pfizer in the morning.
Extramarital sex.
Pfizer in the morning. Smoking all day, have some extramarital sex.
I'm fucking extramarital sex.
Obviously. I'm marrying the COVID vaccine, and I'm going to kill the 3 packs a day.
And by killing those 3 packs, I mean, I'm going
sucking them
down. And then just the normal shit. Separation of church and state. We'll get into it in a second. Abortion. He considers it the equivalent or more significant than the Holocaust. He has compared it to slavery. In 2014, he tweeted one of the best tweets of all time. Quote, every Black Life Matters. # abortion. End quote. # abortion is really good.
He talks a lot. He talks in this book about chattel slavery a few times in ways that don't really make sense to his argument, but he'll talk about like the horrors of American slavery and then say something extremely white supremacist. He, even right after the quote I read, he says,
well, he's Greek, so he can't be white supremacist. I'm sorry.
That's right.
When patriotic Americans are unfairly demonized as white supremacists, are we not obliged to stand up for them? Like what as we stand up for the actual victims of racism? Like, what is wrong with this man's brain? I swear to God.
And yeah, cancel culture, BLM, queer trans rights, they're corrupting our kids, et cetera, et cetera. The bog standard bullshit.
It really is bog standard. And what's interesting to me about the, I don't know, call it culture war shit that he's throwing out there. I don't really love the term culture war, but there's really no other good way to describe the way he's going about it here. Is he doesn't really bother to support any of his arguments in any way, shape, or form, which is odd to me.
It's lazy at best.
This is the problem with trying to grapple with this shit. It's hard to critique it as a piece of rhetoric because there's basically no rhetoric there. He is just repeatedly making assertions and following those assertions with other assertions. And it's not even as if there is a logical line of argument connecting those theses through to a conclusion. He just keeps saying shit.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And I should also note, just on a laziness level, like he already wrote a book about Bonhoeffer. And most of this book is just Bonhoeffer.
Hey, you guys ever heard of Dietrich Bonhoeffer?
Yeah.
And to be fair, I had not.
Oh well, Bonhoeffer is cool. I will say there's a lot to like about Bonhoeffer. There's a lot of interesting stuff.
He almost killed Hitler. He got real close.
I have a note about that too, where he talks about how Bonhoeffer was part.
Sorry, I'm not trying to cut you off, but like I do have a section for us to talk about the part where he talks about killing Hitler. because
Yeah.
he's implying that you should kill Joe Biden.
He is. He
Is
absolutely
that
is.
what? Because I
That's
read
going
that
on there.
and I was like, well, then why isn't he killing Trump? Like, I don't understand what we're talking
Well,
about.
he doesn't
here.
mean Trump.
Honestly,
because
he should have killed Joe Biden then in Minecraft. But like,
he
what are we
posted he posted a picture of a Bible with a gun on top of it in 2023 that says, we now know Joe Biden is America's Hitler. #revolt.
Holy cow!
But wait, why? Why? What motivated that?
Not
Certainly, it wasn't the genocide in Gaza. Because
no. Oh God, no. He
that.
fully supports that. He in fact
Yeah,
said in 2024 that not a single bit of aid should be allowed into Gaza. He said.
So
He
what
said
was
not
so-
even humanitarian aid. He said
What
was
did
willing
Joe
to say.
Biden do that prompted that? Then
Abortion and trans stuff.
Yeah.
Abortion got banned under Biden. What is he talking about?
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, the it was overturned, but it's but Jen,
Joe Biden
have
has
you
done nothing to help us. He did nothing.
Jen, have you considered Joe Biden personally aborted? At least, I 10 trillion, 20
It's about,
trillion.
I think that's the number. Roughly
in
is
there.
10 trillion. Yeah.
So
I mean, he is guilty for murdering thousands of babies in Gaza.
that's true. Let's move into the role of the church here. Jen, will you read this quote that I put here under the role of the church?
Yes, I will. The role of the church. So, when we ask what the church is today and consider the condition of the church today, we should first admit that in latter decades it has receded more and more from public life. In many ways, instead of taking the church out into the world and blessing the world, it has shrunk backward into what it mistakenly thinks of as proper religious sphere. This seems to be its misguided way of apologizing for perhaps having been too political in the 1980s and 1990s when the quote-unquote moral majority and religious right were the boogeyman of the secular media, who always accused Christians of being too political, as they do today when anything we might say nettles their own uncompromising secular doctrines. But many in the church were not up to these criticisms, and weary of the contentious culture wars, they thought that, yes, perhaps it was time to retreat to strictly theological and religious issues. Perhaps it was time to merely preach the gospel, as though such a thing were logically possible, as though the gospel could ever be kept from touching upon all the issues of human life, or as though that would be anything but an abdication of God's calling.
I love touching upon all the things of human life. I just have to say that. Pretty good.
Jacob wants to touch all the things.
Yeah. At one point, Eric Metaxes, not anymore.
Bro,
Everything but him.
Who up touching Eric Metaxes' human life?
Eric, just come out and you'll feel better.
I don't even think he's gay. That's the thing. I've had some of these conservative figures that I'm like, oh, he's gay. Not this guy. He's not even that.
No, he's not.
I fear.
Gay.
He likes his wife. He likes
He'd be
his
happier if
wife
he
a lot.
was.
I don't know.
No, he wouldn't. Not if he was in the closet. I assure you. And he would be.
I mean, it hasn't helped Milo Yiannopoulos be any happier.
That's true.
Disaster, honey.
God, what a mess.
So this is the core of what this book is
Right.
talking about, that the church is afraid. That is his core contention here. The Christians who aren't fighting back against what he diagnoses as the problem, which is somewhat nebulously defined, but has something to do with abortion and gender. These people are comporting to a more liberal theology because the pressure of the state, the United States of America in this case, is so heavy upon them that they feel that they have no choice but to subscribe to these more liberal theological ideas. Yeah. Now, again, is this argument supported with anything? Any data? Any even anecdata? No, none whatsoever. It's all straight from his ass. And what's interesting to me about this is that he is unwilling to even countenance the idea that other people might have a good faith other Christians or other people who, I guess, as he would see it, are not real Christians, could claim to have a good faith difference of opinion with him.
Right.
He doesn't think it's possible. He thinks the only reason that you could ever be opposed to him and his truth is if you are sneaky and you are trying to get one over on him, or if you're a fucking pussy. Those are the two options.
Or
Like
literally have the devil in your ear.
Yes.
Is something he talked about
Yes,
a lot.
correct.
Basically, he's like, all my haters are Satan.
Right.
Which, look, I respect that energy. Don't get me wrong. It's just unfortunate.
All my haters are Satan. I want to be very clear about that.
But Eric
all my
Metaxes
haters
is one of them.
are Satan.
Eric Metaxes is one of my haters that has Satan in his ear. I have to say, at the time of this writing, one of his haters that has Satan as his ear is, I'm not kidding, literally Phil Vischer. He's literally like the voice of Bob the Tomato is trying to destroy Western civilization.
Yeah, he's probably thinking about, like, this was published toward the end of 2022, which means he was writing it in 2021, which probably means that Metaxas blocked Vischer on Twitter while he was writing this book, which is a crazy thing to think about.
Go on Eric, if you still have a Twitter account, even just to lurk, I'm not recommending it, but if you do, go to Eric Metaxas' page, just look up at Phil Vischer and like scroll through the amount of clashes they had. It's fucking awesome. They argued so much in the summer of 2020. It's really peak.
And they used to be friends. They worked together. Is that okay?
I mean,
on that
yeah,
show?
fairly briefly. He worked on one episode of each of his shows that he was connected to, and he did write a very successful book called God Made You Special, which is a tie-in to VeggieTales' whole deal.
Oh, Metaxas wrote God Makes You Special.
He sure did, which is was a really successful book.
Okay, but it doesn't include being gay.
No,
Obviously.
God, not at
Your
all.
specialness. Yeah,
well,
okay.
no, but nor does it not include it.
That's the
Special
thing.
asterisk.
That's the thing with VeggieTales is it's like, able to kind of be, again, I don't want to give Vischer too many props if you want to get too into detail, but it is far more inclusive, let's say.
Is VeggieTales woke? I feel like I've heard that as a criticism from the right. I've never watched it. I'm an adult, but
this isn't something that really usefully maps on to the woke non-woke dichotomy.
Oh, okay.
I think it's more to do with theological approach, and this again comes back to the thing that Metaxas is big mad about. This idea that there can be a Christianity that comes first and foremost from the place of one's personal relationship with Jesus, and that the aspects of the culture that are ultimately just methods of attempting to enforce state persecution of certain minorities are both unnecessary and unchristian in this reading of what Christianity ought to be, which is still a form of evangelical Christianity, by the way.
I have a question about Christianity.
Okay.
Is it not based around your own personal relationship with Jesus? Is that not like the whole thing?
Generally, yes.
Unless you're Catholic, right? And then you need like the Pope as an intermediary, but he's not Catholic.
Or the saints or whatever. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, traditionally, and I mean, he'll go on to talk a little bit about Martin Luther and the fact that the Protestant Reformation got underway originally because the idea was that the religion had become too legalistic.
Yes.
There were too many barriers between parishioners and Christ, and that sort of direct avenue of communication between a believer and the Savior was the thing that ought to be at the heart of Christianity.
Right, but Metaxas is against that?
Well, this is where it gets weird, right? Because I think he is for it in the sense that is still fundamentally the type of Christianity that he believes in as a matter of religious belief. However, he also believes that if you are a true Christian, as he understands it, you will necessarily become opposed to things like gay marriage or being transgender or abortion or whatever, the various social hot button issues, because God puts a weight on your heart to fight for his causes, which again, these are not things that are really grounded in the Bible. These are things that are grounded in certain conservative preconceptions of what the world ought to be, which are ipso facto authoritarian, but he merges these two things together and they are inextricable from each other.
Exactly.
Okay. Thank you.
Does that make sense?
Yes. No, I appreciate that explanation because I was confused about
it. It's because that's the thing. It doesn't make sense, but like it can be understood as a matter of how these people think.
Yeah. And if you want to, and he even gives kind of his model of, well, not exactly his model to be fair, but like of, the church and the state working together well. He multiple times in this book praises the Kaisers of Germany.
Yes.
Multiple times.
So weird.
And now it comes up because Bonhoeffer gives a speech in 1932 at Kaiser Wilhelm Memorial Church, which, nominally against the fascist threat that will be taking power very shortly. It does not go heated. It goes unheated. And that church will be destroyed in about a decade during the Battle of Berlin, which makes for a fairly interesting, image. A guy telling a warning, a decade later, the very building he stands in being blown up. Okay, I can see that's a strong image right there. Yeah. He likes to be like, they didn't have everything right with their separation of church and state and exactly how they should have done it. But the Kaisers, they were pretty on board. And he even goes so far as to say when Martin Luther defended, it wasn't really Germany at that time in the proper sense, but defended the German ruling class, Prussia, whatever, against in Austria against the peasant revolts. He was like, that was actually biblically grounded. So it's very interesting. He's willing to praise that shit.
And his conception of the relationship between church and state is, I think, one of his most inchoate positions.
Yes.
Because on the one hand, he will say the separation of church and state is important. This is a thing that matters. But then he'll turn right back around and he'll say, this is a quote here, "It was in 1954 that then Senator Lyndon Johnson introduced an amendment to the U.S. tax code prohibiting churches and any other nonprofit organizations from taking a public stand on political candidates.
Right.
If anyone from a pulpit dared to endorse a candidate, that church's tax exemption would be repealed. It is astonishing that pastors in America allowed this wild idea to go uncontested. In this, they behaved rather like many of the submissive pastors in Germany 2 decades earlier." Now, this is obviously a facile comparison. What we're talking about here is tax exemptions.
Right.
Pastors can still say whatever the fuck they want under this law, and they do. They just won't necessarily be able to maintain their tax exempt status.
Which is also, nobody enforces that.
No, of course not. Of course not.
Because Eric Metaxes spoke at my church in 2013. I know.
It's crazy to me that he chooses to live in New York City, in Momdonistan.
I also had that
instead of coming to a place like Texas, where we now have mandated 10 commandments on the walls of our schools. That seems like something he would be so for. So why not move your kids to Texas so they can go to school here?
He kind of gets off on the idea that he's in the belly of the beast.
Sure.
And he's also from there.
Oh, okay. He is from
so
New York.
Socrates in the city. How is he going to have Socrates in the city if he's not in the city? Think about it.
I mean, it's not that I want him here. Trust me. We have enough of our own bullshit like this. We got Joel Osteen. We're good. But
Joel Osteen versus Eric Metaxes cage fight. Who's winning?
Fight to the death. Let's fucking go.
Oh, Metaxes by a mile. Yeah, Osteen is fucking washed.
He's frail looking.
That's true. Weak and gay.
And gay.
Just libel. Yes. So he talked about Bonhoeffer for fucking ever. We've talked about this.
He cites himself in a footnote at one point. That was funny.
Really good.
I noticed early on in the book.
One of the only footnotes. Really, not a lot of footnotes.
God.
I want to quote this. I like this a lot because especially living in 2026, y'all are gonna really dig this one, listeners. Quote: "The Nazis controlled the media narrative and instantly whipped up a hysterical fear of the, quote, communists," end quote.
Yeah, communists is capitalized and in quotation marks. Right. That needs to be noted.
And their other political opponents, whom they insisted were to blame for the burning of the Reichstag, despite evidence to the contrary. But it was a useful fiction, and in order to do the things they wished to do, they needed to demonize their enemies, many of whom were rounded up and imprisoned, and to crush dissent by instilling fear in anyone who wished to object. Can you think of parallels to our own time?
I mean, I can, but who is he talking about?
Fucking Joe Biden. He's talking about Joe Biden.
So this is saying, this is talking about COVID protests, isn't it?
Yes, it's talking about COVID.
That's what he's talking about here.
Yes.
A note that I had about this particular paragraph is I think it's very, very interesting the way that he says that the Nazis whipped up a hysterical fear of the quote-unquote communists. Because what was happening here was, of course, that the Nazis were indeed whipping up a hysterical fear of the communists.
Yes.
But they were not quote unquote communists. They were real communists because the real communists were the ones fighting the Nazis. But he can't acknowledge that because it immediately destroys the entire narrative that he's building.
Right. They were the primary bulwark against the Nazis. And also, guess who Bonhoeffer mostly worked with? Like, when he was doing his fucking plots and shit, Bonhoeffer was working endlessly with communists and with, people identified as socialists, anarchists, all kinds. People on the left, though. Bonhoeffer did not have very many allies that would call themselves right-wing, because if you were right-wing in Nazi Germany, guess what you were? You were a Nazi. That's a matter of fact.
Or you were one of the people who Metaxes talks about in this book who refused to sign anything one way or the other.
Right. It's fence sitters. Yeah.
I guess the question that I have here, and we can't really divine an answer, but does he understand this? Surely he again cannot be ignorant to the historical reality of what the fight against Nazism looked like in the 1930s in Germany and who was spearheading that, right? Like, he can't not know this. So,
he has read about it, yes.
Yes.
But maybe he doesn't acknowledge it as historical reality?
Maybe he doesn't see them as legitimate communists. Maybe he was like, oh, well, they're just saying they were communists. Maybe he sees them as, oh, they were a bad opposition, and that's why the bad guys won, I would like to read, here's the email I wrote to him that I'm really hoping he responds to, that I doubt he will respond to. Because, I think he's canny enough to get what I'm doing here.
I think it's obvious. Yes, but I love it.
But what else am I supposed to do? Quote.
Yeah, no, it's good.
I'm going to read this here. Eric, hello. I've been reading Letter to the American Church. In this book, you quite deftly show the connections between the modern church failing to oppose sexual sin and the rise of communism to the German church failure to oppose the rising Nazi regime. However, when I pointed this out to a more left-wing friend of mine, she gave me a hard challenge. He said, since the Nazis were anti-transgender and anti-homosexual, as well as anti-communist, the modern American church would be repeating their mistakes to loudly oppose these things. I'm sure you have encountered this objection before. If you can help me with a response, I'd be incredibly thankful. All the best, Jacob. Now, he's probably going to pick up on what I'm doing. I really want to know what he would say in response to that, though.
Me too.
Because he surely has been confronted with that. And I tried to find like an interviewer or somebody that's confronted with that. And listeners, if one of you can, I'd greatly appreciate it. I have not been able to find him interacting with that exact objection, even though any interview with even just like the slightest bit of sauce would ask him that. Like even a fairly sympathetic interview would be like, now, Eric, let's respond to he's faced.
It's the most obvious contradiction in his analysis of Nazi Germany.
Right.
The most obvious,
Exactly.
There's a quote I wanted to read here where he's talking about, it's the second to last chapter, which is titled Justifying Ourselves. These chapter titles are so
they're really good. It's a lot like, we've praised some good chapter titles. We've praised, Works of Boerman. Of course, we love Percy Jackson's type of titles. This is up there, though. This is up there. Go on.
So this is talking about like modern day stuff. He says, so for example, if we vote for someone who others may criticize as being guilty of this or that, the real question is, did we vote for that candidate because we genuinely believed they would enact policies to help people despite what some might think? Or did we vote or not vote because we were mostly concerned about what others would think of us? Were we thinking of ourselves or were we thinking of others? These are genuine questions we must answer honestly. And in the margins, I wrote, you voted for a pedophile. Like, you openly support someone whom others may criticize of being guilty of this or that. Rape? That's what the person you support is guilty of? Like, what are we fucking talking about here? Justifying ourselves. How do you justify that to yourself?
It's so telling, I think, about what his whole thing is, too, because I don't think that most people, when they vote, think, oh, what will people think of me for having voted for this person?
Because it's the
Nobody
secret
thinks
ballot.
that. Yes.
But he is obsessed with what other people think of him.
Right.
Yes.
His entire life.
Obsessed.
Obviously,
and he
so.
assumes that everybody else is equally obsessed with what other people think of them, which is why he assumes that pastors who preach a gospel of social justice are doing so because they want to preach the real gospel, but they're afraid of blowback. And that's just not the case the vast majority of the time.
That's such a good point. It's projecting. Yeah, for sure. That's a really good point.
And I should add, when I was a fucking teenager telling him, hey, I really liked your speech today at the church, he was like, he literally said something, and this isn't an exact quote, it's been years, but he said something along the lines of, yeah, not like the kind of thing you normally hear, huh? Like, it was literally that to me as a fucking 13, 14 year
You're
old.
like, I'm literally here. This is all I listen to.
Yeah, no, and I was kind of in my head, like, I mean, I will say, he was more charismatic than, like, he's a very good speaker. He's very competent.
Of course.
But
I've listened to his radio show. He can talk. Like,
yeah. I will say my pastor was Steve Berger, who is, and I think, in the top 5 orators I've ever met in my entire life.
So he actually doesn't beat Steve, is what you're telling me. Eric
he actually doesn't. I hate to say it, but the podcast Courageous Conversations, if you want to hear it, Steve recently put out an episode about Nephilim. And if you want to hear the most well-spoken man ever explain to you about real giants, that's where you got to go.
Wait, what is the word?
Nephilim. You don't know about Nephilim?
We don't have time, Jen.
This is good. This is good.
It's
I
demon
am so
human.
out of the loop with all the weird stuff Jacob is into.
It's demon human hybrids, Jen, and it's why God had to purge the earth, and it's why it's okay that they killed literally every human being.
Wait, is this the thing where they were saying that there were giants like in the mountains of Afghanistan? That's related to that?
Yeah.
Steve thinks the giant of Kandahar is a Nephilim. Yes.
This, by the way, is also not a strictly biblical concept. Like, Nephilim is wandering into the realm of biblical mythology. It's like a whole
we're getting into
other
Book
thing.
of Enoch shit. We're getting
Yep.
we're getting into some weird stuff here. And anyway. So neither here nor there.
I'm so glad I don't know what any of those things are. Okay.
We're not gonna. We've gone through a lot of it. We haven't moved through this book strictly linearly because of the way this thing is.
It's not a linear book.
No, it's not.
Not remotely. I have to note the Boerman Declaration. The Boerman Declaration is when the confessing church. This is the church. What the church in Nazi Germany, who self-identified as anti-Hitler in some extent, called themselves. Now, I will say they weren't all necessarily fully anti-Hitler. They basically didn't want the Nazis to be able to tell them what they could preach in the pulpit. So some of them were actually pretty sympathetic, unfortunately. But, broadly, the Boerman Declaration, there was a few thousand people who signed that. There was about an equivalent number who signed a declaration that was like, actually, the Nazis should tell us what to say in our churches, which called themselves the Reich Church. There's about the same number.
Course.
And then
Very
in between, there was this group of people that didn't sign any declaration. Now, the majority, all of those basically went along with the Reich Church. And in fact, most of the people who signed the Boerman Declaration ended up going along with the Reich Church following their political defeat. Bonhoeffer didn't, to his credit, but he also died. He compares the Boerman Declaration 1-to-1 to Chuck Colson's Manhattan Declaration in 2009. Now, I can link the Manhattan Declaration for the real sickos, and I know there's a few of you out there. But
you're people like me, and I salute you.
Yes.
I have no idea what that is. Do I want to know?
The Manhattan Declaration was a declaration that basically was like the church, much as the church stood against Nazi Germany, which is not true, the church must now stand against gay people and abortion, right?
Oh, it's this book, essentially.
It is, yeah.
Okay.
And it is making the gospel conditional on supporting reactionary political causes.
Okay.
And it's a direct response to the election of Barack Obama. And I will also say it has one of my favorite passages ever in it, where it goes into the list of the things the church has done. It credits the church with abolition of slavery throughout the world, which, again, there are Christians that fought for that. There are Christians who fought against that. We've discussed this on the podcast before.
Right.
My favorite, helping people with AIDS in the 1980s and 90s, is in the fucking Manhattan. No, saying the church led the fight to help people with AIDS in the 80s and 90s is in the Manhattan Declaration.
That's crazy. Okay.
It makes that claim. Chuck Colson makes that claim.
Okay, you know what? I want to be very clear about this. It only says that they brought compassionate care to AIDS sufferers in Africa. It does not talk about AIDS in the U.S.
You're right. It did say that.
Interesting.
I think that's an important distinction.
Actually, that is a useful distinction. Well, they probably did throw some money on that and then lecture them. before we move towards
Oh
wrapping
my
this-
God! Sorry.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I'm just saying the great civil rights crusades of the 1950s and 60s were led by Christians claiming the scriptures and asserting the glory of the image of God in every human being, regardless of race, religion, age, or class. Yeah, one church was doing that. You know what another church was doing? You know what the fucking Southern Baptist Church was doing? I just...
Right.
And
Right, exactly. The black church was doing that.
and this is also where it gets so frustrating, the way that he will take the German Lutheran Church and compare it with the nebulous idea of the American Church, because there is no the American Church.
Right. It's
We
not
don't
unified.
have a state church. We never have. That's the entire point of the United States. And I imagine he also would agree that there should not be an American state church.
Right.
And so he's so imprecise in his mapping. And that's part of why it begins to fall apart. Like, the underlying analysis and the historicity of it all is really, really bad, obviously. But so, too, is the way that he takes this thing, which is already ill-defined, and maps it over onto an even more ill-defined thing in the United States over the course of the past 50 years. Because he also gets a lot of the history of the American church itself wrong. He talks about how the church has always steadfastly stood against abortion, for instance. This is not true.
No.
The Southern Baptist Convention famously was very, very opposed to laws against elective abortion up until the realignment with the moral majority. They opposed that shit on libertarian grounds because they were concerned that if the state could say, hey, you can't get an abortion, you can't do what you want with your own body, that could also empower the state to then fuck with people in other ways, including the independence and freedom of the church itself. If you want to talk about things that are a direct parallel to what was going on with the German church in the 1930s, it's that kind of thing.
Right. It's
I'm not handing it to the Southern Baptists either.
No,
I'm
it's just
saying.
what happened. It's just what happened, and it's not hard to learn that if you just fucking Google it, right? Like he wants to hand it to them, but you can't. Let me engage here with Metaxes' claim that the German church was fundamentally not pro-Nazi. He claims that the Holocaust in World War II was unimaginable in the 1930s. He says that several times. Anyone who read Mein Kampf, I don't think people would realize the scale. However, Mein Kampf is not a subtle book.
No.
No. I did the classic thing of course, shaking my head while I read it, but I did read Mein Kampf. You know, you got to shake your head no the whole time. Hitler's not particularly subtle about what he wants to do to Jewish people and anyone he considers an undesirable in that book. Now, I will say, did the average person in like 1933 think, oh yeah, everything is going to be destroyed in all of Europe? Probably not, but I'm not going to give them too much credit for that. Quote here, we've referenced this, but many churches hung Nazi banners and flags outside their churches.
I'm
and
glad
even
that all three of us pulled this quote, by the
Oh,
way.
it's so good. Many churches hung Nazi banners and flags outside their churches and even inside their sanctuaries. It was a small but significant departure from the idea of displaying the German flag, which any German church happily would have done before this time. But healthy patriotism was no longer enough. So hanging the swastika, what was called the crooked cross, may be seen as the virtue signaling of that time. It may also be plausibly compared to when well-meaning churches today display rainbow banners or BLM flags. Most of them, quote, know not what they do, end quote, and are only trying to show solidarity with those they have deemed somehow disenfranchised.
Eric, that's such a good point, Eric. I think you were really cooking. Like, of everything in the book, this was the thing that both made me the angriest and made me laugh the loudest.
Yes.
It was like both at the same time.
Absurd, just the absurdity of it. Imagine these queers and black people thinking they're oppressed in our society.
It's also like the Nazi argument was not, I mean, not that we really have to engage with this, but the Nazi argument was not, we have to defend the oppressed people and then doing a trick where the oppressed people do, like,
right,
there are
not at all.
You could find a couple cases in history where that, like, you know, if you want to like dig into fucking Pol Pot or something, but you can't do that argument with the Nazis.
No.
You just can't. You just can't. And then you would have to, you know, wrestle with the fact the United States was allied with Pol Pot. But it's an absurdity. Hitler repeatedly self-identified as a Christian. His first
Mhm.
speech as absolute dictator in 1934, he reiterated Nazism was fundamentally based in Christianity. The
Mhm.
symbol of the Iron Cross came from the Teutonic
Mhm.
Order.
And there
yeah.
it is. I mean, it's worth saying that there was absolutely a difference between Hitler's public and private positions on this stuff.
Yeah.
And he himself, I don't think you could say that he really had any religion other than the religion of white supremacy. But he
absolutely.
understood how to utilize the framing of German Lutheranism to his own ends, the same way that he was able to utilize everything else cultural in Germany and slowly over time supplant or even replace those hallmarks with new hallmarks that were specifically Nazi in origin and nature.
Yeah, no, Hitler literally was having conversations about his inner circle about whether he could get people to worship Odin. Like he was a freak who wasn't like, along these dogmatic Christian lines. It's just, you can't say the church wasn't. I mean, the Reich Church was so into Martin Luther. They often cited Luther's writings, such as Luther's essay, The Jews and Their Lies, is what that was called. Luther's arguments regularly de-emphasize the Old Testament. That is a thing Martin Luther did. Martin Luther hated Jewish people. You wouldn't know it from reading this book, but he did.
Well, and these are, again, things that you just have to grapple with. Like, this is so much more complicated than what Metaxas is presenting here, where there's right, there's wrong. There's what was in line with Christianity and, like, what the church should have done because this is what God commands of us. And then there's what Satan was doing. It's so blinkered, it's so binary, and it's the sort of thing that, it's the sort of conclusion that you can only come to if you have an incomplete understanding of the actual historical record.
John Toland was one of the foremost biographers of Hitler. He argued Hitler's earliest encounters with anti-Semitism was Catholic teachings. Like, this is a thing you have to wrestle with. Catholics are not inherently anti-Semitic. Lutherans are not inherently like, none of this is trace. I mean, like, fucking Bonhoeffer, dyed-in-the-wool Lutheran, and obviously meant what he said when he said he stood with, he meant that shit, 10 toes down.
Yeah.
Credit to Bonhoeffer. But, like, come on. And I think there's actually a more interesting, like, conversation to be had here when you're like, yeah, some Christians use their Christian faith to do good things and some used it to do bad things. But he's not even willing to say they used it to do bad things. He's saying they were too scared and they all knew it was bad. And that's fundamentally not the case. It's just not.
He takes this one step further, too, when he's talking, again, about the parallel back to now. And he starts to talk about, like, well, why don't churches now really go 10 toes on the ground and say, fuck gay people, right? Like we should. My words, not his. And those are my words that I say every day.
I always say we should fuck gay people.
I do it a lot.
Eric Metaxes, not one of them. Not yet.
Not yet. Holding out for a hero.
But he then says, basically his framing of conversion to when you become a Christian, is that it sort of is the beginning of a debugging process. And over time, you're sort of being cleansed of your old ways and over time gaining perfection. But it's actually a very Methodist way of looking at things, weirdly.
There's a lot of Dobson in that.
But he sees progressive social dogma as a sinful thing that lingers. It is a consequence of the fall. And he even talks about fucking Adam and Eve to sort of get to this point. He thinks that these woke concepts are essentially counter-Christian. And that is why also we've been stripped of our essential masculinity and all of that. Again, the problem is that if you go back and you look at the example he is giving, the historical example, the German Nazi Bund, yeah, they were fucking weird about masculinity, dude. Like, that was kind of their whole thing, was gender.
Right.
And being extremely prescriptive about gender relations, about the proper relationships between families, the nuclear family as the primary unit,
fucking natalism, which is one of Eric Metaxes' bugbears, by the way, if you look at his social media.
He doesn't like natalism?
Or no, he's very pro-natalist.
He's pro-natalist. Well, that makes sense. That makes sense. but then, yeah, you're talking about like Lebensborn and Lebensraum and the way that they were encouraging white Aryan women to have as many children as possible. Exactly. All of these things have direct parallels between then and now, and they're not with the fucking woke SJWs. They're just not. And I know that it's not really useful to point this out and bang the drum over and over again, because of course it's not. But the level of... It's hard to know how much of it is disingenuousness, how much of it is ignorance, or how much of it is the thing that I think often happens with people like this, where they intuit that there's something deeply, 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 deeply wrong, but they're unwilling to stare what that thing is in the face because they're unwilling to confront their own priors. I think that's also a piece of what's going on here.
Well, he has some answers. He says, where to now? He's a chapter called Where to Now, the final part of the book. And he's like, there's some good examples. Like Ronald Reagan.
That's right. Did you know that when Ronald Reagan went to the Brandenburg Gate and said, tear down this wall, he single-handedly destroyed the Soviet Union in that moment?
Literally what he argues.
He says he destroyed, quote, the ultimate cancel culture of the Berlin Wall.
I do love the...
I'm not riffing.
No, that is what he says. This last chapter is literally just glazing Reagan for no fucking reason. And when he's talking about how eloquent and strong and amazing Reagan was in 1987 when he had full-on dementia.
Yes.
Like, his brain was melting in 1987.
Yeah, because he was a prophet and the power of God was moving through him, Jen.
It's absolutely insane. He has this line right here. It's the first paragraph of this last chapter. Imagine a society so
Imagine a society
that it must erect a literal wall to keep its people from escaping. I'm like, again, you support Trump. They are tearing down Big Bend National Park to build a fucking wall where nobody even crosses. And I'm sorry, I cannot deal with hypocrisy like this. It makes my fucking face hurt.
I like when he takes shots at Kissinger and Colin Powell. I thought that was really
that was
sick.
good.
He was like,
For being
Kissinger was
pussies.
a bitch he didn't want to fucking fight. Weak ass. I thought that was cool.
Calling Kissinger a pussy is good shit.
It's really good. Guy who famously has no blood on his hands whatsoever, Henry Kissinger.
Right.
I like Reagan is called David in the USSR Goliath, which is just like, I don't know about all that.
Especially the USSR in the late 1980s was already crumbling under its own contradictions.
They were
what are you even talking about?
unstoppable.
But this is the thing, right? This is what no material analysis does to a motherfucker. If you were to, I don't know, read about what was happening in the Soviet Union, particularly starting with the oil shocks of the mid 1970s. And then, of course, he even talks about them actually going into Afghanistan. He talks about it. And he said, you know what the craziest thing was actually in his analysis of that? He was like, well, they went into Afghanistan because Jimmy Carter was such a big pussy. And look how that turned out. And it's like, what?
Yeah, it turned out
It turned out they lost? Doesn't this mean we need to hand it to Jimmy Carter?
Yeah, it was a fucked
By
up
your
strategy,
logic,
but it did
sir?
work. It had some blowback, but it had some blowback when Zoran Mamdani blew up the Twin Towers. But
that's true.
Correct.
And then he says that, listen, Bonhoeffer planned to kill Hitler, and he knew that was biblical. Which I agree. Kill Hitler if you get the opportunity.
Should have done it.
He tried. He did try. Credit to the Big D.
Did Bonhoeffer end up in a camp? Did he get arrested by the Nazis?
Yeah, he died. Yeah,
he died in a concentration camp.
I think he actually died in a German prison pre-death camp, but he was going to go to one and he died.
He was headed there. Okay.
Yeah, no, he was killed though by the regime for his work. Well,
man, and they actually I was just looking it up because I couldn't remember off the top of my head. They killed him in April 1945.
Ooh,
he
so
just barely missed it.
Close.
Yeah, it sucks. It genuinely sucks. But he was executed in Flossenburg. So one of the concentration camps. Yeah.
Okay, so he did end up in a camp. Yeah.
Yeah.
But he basically is like, what are you willing to do for the cause?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Bonhoeffer was willing to do violence. He doesn't specifically say here, go shoot Joe Biden. He doesn't specifically say here, go, blow up an abortion clinic.
But it's worth noting that at this point in the previous chapter, he's been spitting so much fire about how abortion, state policy right now is killing innumerable babies. This country has blood on its hands. Its leadership has blood on its hands. We go right into chapter 12 where it's like, it actually says, what price are we willing to pay to do the right thing? And is basically like, yeah, don't be a pussy, don't be a coward. And you know who also was martyred for his beliefs? A man named Dietrich Bonhoeffer, who tried to kill Hitler.
So, and Eric is such a little pussy himself for writing this and not actually doing it himself. If this is what you really believe, bro, you would be organizing to do J6 on Biden. You know, like
yeah,
what are you doing?
He's posting pictures of guns, so you know he's got them.
Yeah, but they all have guns.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
America.
He's not doing shit. I really love the picture of the gun on top of the Bible. I think it's really cool and badass. And then he puts out
I think you're onto something though, Jen. Like there's a cowardice here. There is a cowardice not just in the rhetoric, but in the actions. This is a man who is unwilling to even write something that would more strongly tilt in the direction of seeming to be agitating for something. Because he could still agitate more aggressively than he does in this book and still be protected under the First Amendment.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
No one's going to prosecute him for that.
No. I mean, unless he were to literally write, you should go out and assassinate the president of the United States, Joseph Robinette Biden. Which, by the way, is not something that I just did. I was saying that as an example. I want to be very fucking clear about that. Yes. I am not saying that either.
Yeah, Biden's
not
already
the president, so
well, that's
he's
true.
not the president, and also like cancer's doing it. So
he's got ass cancer. Yeah,
good point. Yeah, stick by the courage of your convictions, man. Do it. If you really believe that strongly, go do it.
He puts out a practical call too. He says, "quote." Heaven looks to you and me to do the right thing. What part of the tottering wall has God called you to push? Reference to Berlin.
I love pushing my tottering wall.
Are who up pushing their tottering wall? Are you to run for office? To homeschool? Sorry.
To homeschool, yeah.
To homeschool your children?
The shout out is crazy.
It's pretty good.
To give millions to some vital cause for freedom and truth and justice?
I don't have millions. Leave me alone, Eric.
Are you to speak out in a situation where others are being silent? Are you to vote and even advocate for a candidate some are denouncing as unchristian, but whom you nonetheless know to be a champion of God's purpose?
Why? Just say Trump. Just say Trump. Again, say it with your whole fucking pussy, dude. Like, come on.
Yeah, exactly. And here's the thing. He's literally talking to the like 3 types of people who read this book, which is really cool.
Us.
Someone who might run for office.
Right.
Someone who might homeschool their children and someone who has millions of dollars to give to a cause. I mean, and that's kind of how he closes the thing out. You know, you got to push down the Berlin Wall in your life, which, you know, he's been hanging out with Gladwell a little too much because that's some Gladwell shit right there. And that's it. I mean, he wraps it up and he's like, let's go fucking do this thing. And now checking his social media, he's mostly saying that Donald Trump has every right to declare the Strait of Hormuz as part of the United States.
Yeah,
so things are going great. Things are going really good. He thinks everything is good, and he thinks that Trump should declare martial law to fight against fascism, ?
Yeah, that'll go over really well when you're polling at like a 33% approval rating. Good luck with that.
So what are our overall takeaways? How do we combat this kind of guy? And are we still sane?
Are we still sane? No, not after this.
I haven't been sane in a very long time.
That's true.
I'm just looking forward to the teaser clip that you pull and me tweeting at Eric Metaxes and calling him a bitch.
Yeah, as soon as Jen is getting ready to just unleash a Twitter.
I've been holding back. I found his Twitter
it's really good.
Weeks ago.
He posts good stuff.
It's insane. He is. I waffle back and forth between. No, he's just an insane person, and this is and it's like malicious. Like this is evil. I don't know if he's crazy or evil or a mixture of both. I like to think it's just crazy and that like he has this warped understanding of history and like some weird self-importance. But my worry is that he's actually quite intelligent and is manipulating specifically people like Marco Rubio. That's how you pitch this, is that like Marco Rubio loves this guy. You gotta fucking
he has quite a
this.
connection. I should have mentioned that he has There is some evidence to suggest that he has talked with Marco Rubio a good deal.
That is
and that there's
terrifying to me.
Yeah.
Like
connections
that,
between the two of them.
where it's all like, it's fun making fun of this because it's absurd bullshit to anybody that has an understanding of history or current politics. But the fact that somebody this evil, I'll say it, has the ear of people with power is terrifying to me.
I also, to your point, Jen, I think I very much lean more toward the he's serious and he means it and he has connections thing. I think that there's a real temptation, and this is just a tendency in general among critics on the left, to be like, that guy's stupid. And here's the thing, like, honestly, he is kind of stupid in the sense that he lacks inquisitiveness.
Yeah, academic
And
rigor.
he doesn't really know how to construct an argument and blah, 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 blah. But he's not stupid in the sense that he lacks any and all reasoning ability, and he's clearly canny and savvy.
Right, he knows what he's doing.
Exactly. And so I think there's a possibility that some of the stuff in this book is presented in slightly bad faith, but I think by and large he says what he means and he means what he says.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Absolutely.
I guess the last thing that I wanted to say about this book specifically, Metaxes' whole style more broadly, and just something that jumps out at me that I'm kind of curious about, I'm curious what we all think about, is that he loves to ask these questions. He's a big question asker.
He's just asking them.
And when he asks these questions, he is using the word we. This is one of the key rhetorical things that I noticed that make his writing a bit different from a lot of the rest of what I have read. It's obviously not uncommon to say, what should we do about this? But for the most part, I've found that in persuasive writing, you only get to that point when you're driving your conclusion home. He does this constantly. And when he does it, more often than not, he seems to be framing himself implicitly above the broader we. And I'm going to give an example of that here from the book. He says, God is not satisfied or fooled by what we say we believe any more than the devil is fooled by what we say we believe. Keep a counter running in your head for how many times he says we here. Or any more than our neighbors are fooled, or our friends or enemies. People see precisely what we believe by how we behave. Can there be any doubt that we don't believe much of what we claim to believe? What will it take for us to genuinely believe what God says? What will it take for us to understand that God is not fooled by what we claim to believe? I think his usage of we is interesting here because he clearly does not include himself in the we. So what's that all about?
Have we considered that his pronouns are we, us, and that's just the perspective
He's just
here?
that woke.
No, but it's not his, that's the thing. Again, it's not his pronouns. He is talking, he means, this is clearly second person. He's clearly saying, you motherfuckers aren't doing this. But he's saying, we aren't doing this. Maybe part of that is just make it softer rhetorically, but I'm really curious about this because this is the big writing tick about him that I noticed throughout the book, and I'm curious what this means.
Well, the book is called Letter to the American Church, right? And I think just genuinely, he has this feeling that the church is not as activated as it should be. And I think some of this genuinely is, and you know, not an expert in New York, but I would guess, by and large, New York is going to have more of the churches with the rainbow flags than your average church, right?
We do have those, yes.
Right. Oh, and they exist they exist in Atlanta and stuff. They don't exist everywhere. They don't exist in Leapers Fork, Tennessee, where he went and spoke.
Or like Waco, Texas is going to be a lot different. He should just move to Waco.
But, so I think part of it is he is deeply irritated at some of that. He's deeply irritated at some of his former friends and stuff like that, who, you know, he calls out a few people. He even calls out some people like Piper and stuff like that who are certainly conservative. But, you know, folks like Vischer as well, things like that, people that he worked with in the industry, right, when he was coming up, folks who were working on things like Amazing Grace, stuff like that, folks who were at the National Prayer Breakfast. I think he's frustrated because he sees that while the evangelical bloc is extremely strong, they are, and this is some debate, but they are declining by and large. There is going to be
demographically, yes.
Demographically, there is a decline. Now there's some upticks in some places with young people, but
This is why we got to get those birth rates up.
Exactly. But he sees that weakness. He sees the church getting older. He sees that, like, while the right wing is gaining in some ways, the whole right is not the religious right. There's plenty of, he is a big anti, like, Nick Fuentes guy. He's always talking about Nick Fuentes on Twitter and stuff like that, right? He's very concerned. He's like, oh, his politics are not based in Christianity, despite the fact that he's a conservative. Things like that. So I think he's just really
correct,
like, we gotta
right?
unite.
Like, he'll be correct about some things like that.
Well, yeah. And that's true. Nick Fuentes isn't based in, like, religious whatever. He's based in whatever the fuck he's based in. We haven't talked about him on the show, but, like,
clout mostly.
Yeah,
right.
God,
yeah, power.
Fucking internet poisoning. So I think that's what it's at the core of. He sees, like, the church in decline and the church not able to work as a united block in the way he would like it to, because the church is not like the German church. There is not a singular church. It is so disparate, and that pisses him the fuck off. And so this vision of the church that he has in his head of what it was never, but what it was and what it can be or will be or should be, that is what he has in his head. And that's what he's pissed off. And that's why this is the letter to the American church.
Right. So I've got one more off the back of that then, which is, if you want to talk about something that is all one, unified whole, sort of, it is the Republican Party under President Donald Trump in his second term. Now, this is a tenuous situation, to say the fucking least, and the fault lines have grown into full-on fissures over the course of the past couple months in particular. If Trumpism fails, what the fuck do they do? Because to me, I guess going back to your point about, like, what you see here, Jacob, to me, a lot of this just reads as sublimated anxieties about the collapse of American conservatism more broadly under Donald Trump. Because that's his real church. Much as he would be loath to admit it, Trump's the God King. Everything comes downstream of him. But if Trump is no longer able to hold that coalition together anymore, which at this time looks increasingly more and more probable, I don't know where you go from there. And I'm curious, I guess I'm just curious to hear what people think of that more broadly.
I mean, I agree with that. I mean, Trump is not gonna make it to the end of the year, so they're gonna have to figure
Jen
out.
And I have a bet. Jen and I have a bet on this.
No,
Jen and I have a bet on this one. Yes,
he's not gonna survive.
I think
look at him. He's
I think
dying.
Donald Trump's gonna live to like 100 years old.
I'm with Jacob on this one. He's a centenarian category.
No, there's no fucking way. Maybe, like, genetically, if he, like, took care of himself, like, and didn't...
Hasn't stopped him so far.
It's the Mr. Burns thing of all the diseases are stuck in the fucking thing and none of them can
they
break
all fight
through.
each other.
Yeah, if he got slightly healthier, he'd die. Anyway, but I'm sorry, go on, Jen.
No, that was it. They're gonna have to figure it out soon. Either way, even if Trump lives to be 100, that doesn't change the fact that his brain, he's not as clever as he was even 2 years ago.
That's what I'm saying.
He
Him
have
staying
the juice.
alive is not necessarily a guarantee that he will be able to hold the coalition together, given his deteriorating mental state and the fact that there are other people nipping at his heels quite aggressively right now.
Yes, but there is nobody that can hold the coalition together the way he can.
Exactly.
It'll splinter.
Sorry, Metaxes seems to think it's Rubio. I don't think it's Rubio, personally.
Why does he think it's Rubio?
Seems to think he's the guy. He seems to think he's smart. I think Rubio
doesn't have the juice.
No.
He's
yeah, but I think Rubio's
clever, he's not funny.
But I think Rubio's given him the time of day. I genuinely think that's what it is. Like, I think that's the guy that will talk to him. I think that's it. I will say Metaxes is talking a lot of shit on Twitter at Tucker Carlson, saying, I hope Tucker Carlson runs. He'd get beaten so bad. He has no chance to win a Republican primary in 2028 or 2032. He's talked a lot of, I don't know, between this and then going on I Hate Bill Maher and watching an episode of Bill Maher and Bill Maher sounding like people in 2015 saying Trump will never win about Tucker Carlson.
Oh,
I'm like, the wrongest people of all time, Eric Metaxes and Bill Maher, says he can't. So starting to think, who knows? Based on just betting against my least favorite, stupidest people. But who can say? We will find out. We sure will. And regardless, Eric Metaxes looks healthy. He looks young enough. I think he's going to keep yapping.
He looks submissive. He looks breedable.
He looks breedable.
Breedable.
Look, God, yeah. I don't know about a letter to the American church, but I have a package. No.
Hey,
Anyway.
let's go.
Anyway, folks,
Oh my God.
this has been, I don't know about fun, probably fun for y'all, folks who listen to this podcast. Y'all love this shit. Y'all love this shit. Fucking AJ coming on to talk about JD Vance was our biggest episode ever. So like,
Wow.
Presumably y'all love this shit.
I had fun.
Yes, I had fun too, because this is how I'm built.
This
Josh,
was fun. Reading it, not fun. This.
Oh no, I didn't have fun reading it either.
No,
but
God, no.
You do have to understand, Jen, that I have a deep, deep sickness of the soul, and that's why I became a professional podcaster.
Exactly.
Fair enough.
Josh, speaking of being a professional podcaster, where can folks find your work?
Well, if you would like to follow me around on social media, you can do so. I'm mostly on Blue Sky at bosh.worstpossible.world. I also have a website, joshboerman.com, which just has most of the shit that I have going on. And if you are interested in listening to either of my delightful podcasts, one of the shows is called The Worst of All Possible Worlds. We do weekly case studies in the pop culture of a dying empire, which is mostly to say the United States of America. And we did a VeggieTales episode pretty recently. So if you're interested in hearing about that, you can go check it out. We've had Jacob on the show a couple times at this point, and we also talk about a bunch of other shit. If Adventures in Odyssey means anything to you and you haven't listened to our show for some reason, like to quote Reggie Fils-Aimé, what's wrong with you? Come listen to our show.
It's hard for me to imagine someone who is listening to this, knows what Adventures in Odyssey is, and hasn't heard Worst of All Possible Worlds.
That would be insane to me.
But
yeah.
if they have, for the love of God, do yourself a favor.
And then my other podcast is called Ill Conceived. It's a podcast about natalism. We're talking about the people who see declining birth rates as the biggest problem facing the United States and the world right now. This, of course, is not our position, but we are very interested in the people for whom it is. And one big dub on that front recently, by the way, this just happened yesterday. One of the weird freaks who who we've talked about a bit on that show is involved with some fucking weird-ass sex conference thing that Ayala is throwing in the San Francisco Bay Area. And this actual Nazi lady has been on my radar for a while. So when I saw that there were other people who were booked for this conference who, as best as I know, are not Nazis, I reached out to all of them to let them know. And at this time, at least one of those attendees has now dropped out of the conference, and I am hoping to see a few more drop out as time goes by.
Fuck yeah.
So small victories. We love to see it. And thank you again so much for having me on. Good to sort of get it out about this shit, because better out than in is what I always say.
That's absolutely right.
That's the opposite of what Jacob says.
Jen is calling me out, and she is right. Jen, do you have anything before I read this final section here that I had saved?
No, I'm gonna start a little fire in my fire pit and get rid of this book.
Good.
It should burn pretty well. It's not a huge book, but
No, and I have a hardcover.
Oh,
how
you
many
have a
pages are in the hardcover?
137 or so.
Oh, okay. That's a light.
39.
That's a light volume.
You get the Eric centerfold in that one. That's the special.
You get his nice little picture here.
He's erect in the centerfold too. It's fucking crazy.
It's
Full
crazy.
on erection.
Well, I'm going to read something here. The Bonhoeffer family a couple years ago, because I don't know if y'all know this, there are still Bonhoeffers.
There are Bonhoeffers everywhere with eyes to see.
Yeah. 86 Bonhoeffers get together and made a letter to Eric Metaxes.
That's a lot of Bonhoeffers.
Yeah, that's basically all the Bonhoeffers.
Yeah.
And I'm going to read a selection from this. It's not the entire thing, but it's a good chunk of it. Quote, "We, the Bonhoeffer family, are horrified to see how the legacy of Dietrich Bonhoeffer is increasingly being distorted and misused by right-wing extremists, xenophobes, and religious agitators. As direct descendants of the 7 siblings of the theologian, because, for a note, he did not have his own children, and resistance fighter executed by the Nazis, we can testify, based on what we learned from our families, that he was a peace-loving, freedom-loving humanitarian. Never would he have seen himself associated with a far-right violent movements such as Christian nationalists and others who are trying to appropriate him today. On the contrary, he would have strongly and loudly condemned these attitudes.
Hell yeah.
A key figure in this abuse is Eric Metaxes.
Get
My
him.
He has
name.
ignored the historical context and misrepresented Bonhoeffer as a fundamentalist evangelical. Metaxas is a right-wing Trump supporter. He regularly compares U.S. President Biden to Hitler, speaks of total war, and posts photos of a gun upon a Bible. The tasteless trivialization of Bonhoeffer's legacy has encouraged this misuse. He was a complex thinker who was primarily concerned with ethical issues. Unlike the majority of Germans, he did not turn a blind eye to the disenfranchisement, oppression, and mass murder that took place under Nazi dictatorship. His quotes have been taken out of context and reduced to set pieces for all kinds of occasions. More recently, they have increasingly been used by many whose intentions are diametrically opposed to Bonhoeffer's thoughts and actions, ranging from Project 2025, the Heritage Foundation's proposed program for Donald Trump, to the German right-wing extremist of Bjorn Hulk. We descendants can bear witness to the attitude passed on in the family. We grew up listening to frequent talk and debate about resistance to National Socialism, its motives and consequences. At a time when intolerance, anti-Semitism, and other forms of racism and xenophobia, nationalism and authoritarianism are on the rise around the world, we believe it is important to clarify publicly Dietrich Bonhoeffer fought narrow-mindedness, oppression, and exclusion throughout his entire life. The abuse of Dietrich Bonhoeffer's legacy by Christian nationalists and others is of such cynicism that we are unlikely to convince these demagogues. But we call on American voters in particular, do not be deceived. Look carefully at your history. Only by working together in the spirit of freedom and concern for others will we be able to solve our problems. This is what Dietrich Bonhoeffer stands for, signed on by the 86 descendants of the Bonhoeffer family.
That's so good.
I think
really
they
good.
said it better than
That's
I
a
can.
fucking mic drop, yeah.
Yeah. And it's longer than that with even more context and even more citations. But, go read it. I'll link it in the show notes.
They're like, keep my grandpa's name out,
Out your
fucking
filthy
mouth.
ass Greek German mouth, you horrible biracial pervert.
Well, with that, folks, thanks for listening to Workers Lit, and we'll see you next week. Bye.
Ciao.
Pages upon pages.